Ever wondered why the media trembles at the mention of Dr. Shola Moshogbamimu's name? Well, let's take a moment to introduce this powerhouse of a woman. Dr. Shola Moshogbamimu, a force to be reckoned with, has devoted herself to the fight against racism and the injustices perpetuated by the UK media. Her name, her work, and her voice have become symbols of strength and resilience. Every time she speaks out against the blatant and unapologetic racism, it stirs a whirlwind of reactions. Some try to silence her, some attempt to misrepresent her, but her voice remains unwavering. The echo of her words continues to shake the very foundations of the institutions that have long thrived on colonialism and white supremacy. As we delve into the journey of Dr. Shola's activism, remember this: she is not just a name, she is a movement. Now, let's chronologically delve into Dr. Shola's activism journey. The roots of Dr. Shola's activism go way back. Even as a young woman, she was acutely aware of the inherent biases in the media landscape. She saw a narrative dominated by a singular perspective that often overlooked, marginalized, and misinterpreted the voices of those from different backgrounds. Growing up, she observed the media's tendency to stereotype and marginalize people of color. She saw the perpetuation of harmful narratives and the erasure of diversity. It was during these formative years that she began to question the status quo. She asked, why is it that certain voices are amplified while others are silenced? Why is the narrative so one-sided? She began to challenge this system. She took to the streets, participating in protests and rallies. She wrote letters, engaged in debates, and used every platform available to her to voice her concerns. She was not afraid to call out the media for their biased reporting and their failure to represent the diversity of the society they claimed to serve. She was met with resistance, of course. Critics tried to silence her, to discredit her. She was accused of being too aggressive, too outspoken, too disruptive. But she took it all in stride. She knew that change wouldn't come without resistance. She knew that her voice, however uncomfortable it made people, was necessary. But Dr. Shola wasn't just about pointing out the problem. She was also about finding solutions. She engaged with media outlets, offering them insights into how they could better represent the diverse voices in society. She advocated for more inclusive hiring practices, for more diverse voices in the newsroom. She pushed for better representation, not just in front of the camera, but behind it as well. This was just the beginning of her fight against media racism. And as she grew older, her activism only intensified. She refused to be silenced, refused to be sidelined. She continued to fight, to speak out, to challenge the system. And she continues to do so today, stronger than ever, refusing to let media racism go unchallenged. As her voice grew louder, so did the opposition. The rising tide of Dr. Shola's activism was met with an equally strong current of resistance. As she began to challenge the status quo and expose the deep-seated bias and racism in the UK media, the pushback was inevitable. Dr. Shola's activism was like a stone thrown into a still pond, causing ripples that disturbed the comfortable prejudices that had long existed unchecked. As she continued to speak out, her voice echoed through the halls of power, causing unease and discomfort among those who had grown complacent in their privilege. She used her platform not just to call out bias, but to highlight the systemic racism that underpinned the media's narrative. She drew attention to the insidious ways in which people of colour were portrayed, the subtle and not-so-subtle discrimination that was normalised and accepted. But with every truth she exposed, with every bias she called out, the opposition grew stronger. They tried to silence her, to discredit her, to paint her as a troublemaker. They twisted her words, used them out of context, and attempted to make her the villain, but Dr. Shola was not deterred. She stood her ground, refusing to be silenced, refusing to let the media dictate her narrative. She stood up to the pushback, facing it with courage and determination. They tried to bury her, but they didn't realize that she was a seed, and from the pushback she only grew stronger. Each attempt to silence her only amplified her voice. Each attempt to discredit her only validated her claims. And so, despite the pushback, despite the attempts to silence her, Dr. Shola remained unyielding. She stood tall, her voice echoing louder than ever, a beacon of truth in a sea of bias and discrimination. She became a symbol of resistance, a testament to the power of speaking truth to power. Despite the pushback, Dr. Shola remained unyielding. She continues to rise, to fight, to speak out, proving that no matter how hard they try, they cannot silence the voice of truth. Dr. Shola's activism wasn't just loud, it was impactful. Her voice, resounding with conviction and truth, has reverberated through the media landscape, sending shockwaves that have disrupted the status quo. Dr. Shola's work has been a catalyst for change, igniting conversations that were long overdue. She has thrown open the doors to discussions about racism in the UK media, discussions that many would rather sweep under the carpet. Her relentless pursuit of truth has forced these conversations into the spotlight, making it impossible for anyone to shy away from these uncomfortable realities. Her activism has not been without results. The ripples of her influence have reached far and wide, causing a noticeable shift in the dynamics of the media landscape. The blatant racism that was once casually swept under the rug is now being challenged, thanks to Dr. Shola's unyielding efforts. Her influence extends beyond the media. She has influenced public discourse, prompting individuals to question, to challenge, and to refuse to accept the status quo. She has empowered others with her bravery, inspiring them to raise their voices against the injustices they witness. Dr. Shola's activism has also had a profound impact on institutions that were previously unchallenged. These institutions, built on colonialism and white supremacy, are now being scrutinized, their foundations shaken by the force of her words. Her work has also led to significant changes in the way racism is perceived and addressed. The narratives that once dominated the media are being rewritten, replaced by a discourse that acknowledges and challenges systemic racism. Yet this is just the beginning. Dr. Shola's activism continues to inspire change, to challenge the status quo, and to hold those in power accountable. Her work is a testament to the power of a single voice, a voice that refuses to be silenced, a voice that demands justice. Dr. Shola's work has undeniably shaken the media landscape. Her voice, her courage, and her unwavering dedication to truth have left an indelible mark. She has proven that no amount of misrepresentation, silencing tactics, or gaslighting can drown out the truth. And the truth, as Dr. Shola has shown us, is a powerful force for change. Fast forward to 2025, and Dr. Shola's voice is louder than ever. The UK media landscape remains steeped in a culture of systemic racism, a culture that Dr. Shola continues to combat with unflinching determination and poise. The media's attempts to silence her have been as ineffective as a sieve trying to hold water. Each time they try to muffle her voice, she responds with an even louder call for accountability. You see, Dr. Shola isn't just challenging the media's narrative, she is rewriting it, tearing down the walls of complacency and indifference that have long shielded those responsible. Recent events have only underscored the urgency of her mission. Just this past month, a prominent news outlet was caught in a whirlwind of controversy, having published a piece that was as tone-deaf as it was racially insensitive. But it was Dr. Shola who shined a spotlight on the issue, calling on the outlet to acknowledge its misstep and confront its bias. And then there was the incident with a popular morning show host, who thought it appropriate to dismiss a guest's experiences with racism as overblown. Dr. Shola was quick to call out the host's lack of empathy, sparking a nationwide conversation about the importance of listening to and validating the experiences of those who have been marginalized. Through it all, Dr. Shola has remained steadfast in her mission to expose media racism for what it is, an insidious force that perpetuates harmful stereotypes and silences the voices of those who dare to challenge the status quo. She is more than just an activist. She is a catalyst for change, a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of accountability in a world that too often looks the other way. And as we move further into 2025, one thing is clear. Dr. Shola is just getting started. She will continue to stand tall, continue to speak out, and continue to fight for a media landscape that reflects the diversity and inclusivity of the world we live in. Dr. Shola continues to be a beacon of accountability in the fight against media racism. So, why does the media fear Dr. Shola's voice? It's simple. They fear the truth that Dr. Shola fearlessly brings to light, the truth about the systemic racism that permeates the UK media and the institutions they guard so fervently. Throughout this video, we've explored Dr. Shola's journey, from her early activism days to her rise in prominence, and the significant impact she has made. We've seen her relentless pursuit of accountability and justice, her refusal to back down in the face of adversity, and her unwavering commitment to truth and equality. Dr. Shola's voice is a beacon of light in the darkness, a call to action that cannot be ignored. As we move forward into 2025, it's clear that her voice, her message, will continue to resonate, continue to challenge, continue to inspire. Now it's your turn to contribute to this conversation. What are your thoughts on Dr. Shola's activism? Drop your like button if you found this video informative, and do subscribe for more insightful content.